Hey, this is Frank. You're listening to an Origins episode of the Unbecoming Platypus podcast. Do you ever feel like you have friends who sometimes just don't get each other? This is a podcast that I recorded with two of my friends, Jake and Noah. We find out the hard ways we struggle to communicate better and sometimes succeed, but sometimes not. For years, the three of us have talked about communication and how it's sometimes easier said than done. Even when we're trying to be understanding, our well-meaning intentions often get lost in translation. We decided to share these conversations with the world. Join us as we find out what happens when three friends try to learn how to really talk to each other. Often in the podcasting world, what they do for this is they have you wear headphones, so you make sure your voice is a consistent volume that you like. And then you do that however you want. So if you want to do it like this, you can. If you want to do it like this, you can.
When it's like this, it's hard to hear you.
That's because you're not yelling.
When it's like this.
If Jerry Seinfeld was doing a podcast. So, anyway, are we recording now?
Where am I?
We're recording.
Oh.
He just realized his Seinfeld impressions on the podcast.
I know. I saw it.
What you have to realize is, tomorrow's Noah's birthday, Frank. How are we going to tell him happy birthday?
We do need to plan that.
Do you have it in Todoist?
I'll put it in Todoist right now.
Okay. For tomorrow. Well, planning probably needs to happen today.
All right. Plan Noah's birthday today, and then tomorrow I'll have Noah's birthday.
Execute.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, that's nice. That's good.
Look, it's project management.
Execute
its
the plan.
Finest.
Yeah. Should we have a kickoff?
Execute Noah's birthday. Got it. So on Tuesday, we should probably control and monitor Noah's birthday.
Well, yeah, we should probably review our KPIs and,
see if we hit the target.
KPIs is one of my least favorite terms.
Do you hate it in general, or do you just hate it when I say it?
No, in general. I don't think it's you. Sometimes.
Frank, say KPIs. I'm trying to do a test here.
There's some terms I don't say.
Okay, gotcha. Hey, Frank, can you say key performance indicators, please?
I think that's it. It's not when Jake says it. It's that he's the only one who says it.
Yeah, that's it. I can say performance indicators.
Can you say SMART goals?
I like SMART goals.
Okay. All right. What happens at the end of SMART goals?
You want to give us a rundown of SMART goals?
Oh, man.
What does SMART stand for?
Specific, measurable, attainable. What is
repeatable?
Repeatable, and time-based.
Nice.
Yeah, I met some ladies today. Shout out, ladies, if you're listening to the podcast. And
you met them today?
No, not today. I met them. I met them 2 weeks ago, and then I said hi to them again this last week, and they said, "What were you working on?" And I said, I was editing a podcast, and they said, "Oh, did you talk about us on your podcast?" And I said, "Not yet."
Yeah, we're really lighting that map up with subscribers around the globe.
Yeah, I know. I got some more in Edwardsville.
We have a listen from Germany.
Do we really?
Mm-hmm.
Hello in Deutschland.
We used to have a listener from Germany.
Don't you speak German? Why don't you say something in German?
Ich werde, aber I think I shouldn't. Ich kann Deutsch.
You guys remember when we used to have a listener in Germany?
Ambition.
To our one listener in Germany. I'm German.
That's right. You're German everywhere you go.
I'm always German.
Yeah. Always have been. Always will be, I assume.
That is germane to the conversation.
Woo!
Sometimes I'm called Jermaine.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
I know we chose a topic. Did we choose a topic?
Yeah, we didn't officially.
This is the planning portion of the podcast.
Yes, planning is part of initiation.
Yeah. We could do podcast 7.
Oh, yeah, let's do podcast 7.
Then we'll do podcast 8.
That's fine with me. We could do podcast 8 first if you wanted to.
It's got to be in Notion before we can talk about it.
All right, well, I'll start
True.
that while Frank starts talking about podcast 7 topics. It was his idea. So, Frank, hit me.
Hey, speak like you're having a conversation, man.
I'll try. How people have conversations is changing.
How so?
Well, it used to be like a really sort of dedicated project, and now it seems like it's a more distracted project.
How so?
I mean, you're having a conversation with someone and they go have a conversation with someone else in the middle of it on their phone. This used to be totally unacceptable behavior, and now it's completely normal.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I read something, or maybe I saw a video, it wasn't too long ago, and it said they did a study, and even if a phone is visible at all, on the table, face down, whatever, that the number of talking points that you take away from the conversation is like diminished by like 25%.
Noah, you're ruining our podcast right now. That should help, I think.
I think so. Noah is trying to come up with reasons to get a new phone. He doesn't want to just upgrade. He wants to have to get a new phone.
No, I really don't. I've dropped that phone enough on accident. I think it's okay. That was a controlled drop, you know.
Was it?
It sounded loud.
Oh, I mean, of course it did. It echoed through
Controlled
mics.
things can't sound loud. Known facts.
This conversation's great.
I'm trying to speak like I'm having a conversation.
Yeah.
Which is what Poised told me to do.
Yeah.
Actually,
it's
told me a few times to do it.
Tell me about Poised, because I've heard you mention it a couple times, and I have an idea based on what you've said.
Sure. So,
but I don't really know what Poised is.
Yeah. Poised is not a sponsor of this podcast.
Yet.
And I doubt they will be after this. It's a great idea with very poor execution, but during your live speech and interaction, it tells you about like statistics, what percentage of the time you're talking, words per minute, if you're talking too fast for most people to hear you or understand you, if you use hedge words a lot, if you just like tons of live feedback on your speech and on your camera. Like
so when you have Zoom calls at work or whatever,
Zoom, Teams, yeah, anything, and you can even like turn it on and just like use it to record a video or something, I think. However, the way it works is by routing all of your speaker audio through a Poised software audio interface, which is terrible and freezes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great idea, but if the call is important, it is off for me because it freezes too much.
It freezes the entire call?
Oh, it freezes the app, and then you got to change all your audio settings because all your audio is routed through this app.
Gotcha.
It's about the worst possible thing to have in the loop when you're on a very important communication.
Does it take into account others' responses?
Yeah, it doesn't like tell you about what they should do, obviously, but it tells you.
Right, but it probably reads their tone maybe or their
at
their
least the
responses in some
percentage
way.
of speaking. And it does other things too, like it like monitors how much you tell stories. Because it's such
it encourages you to tell stories or Gotcha.
It helps connect humans so much better. So it's pretty cool, but they need to fix it.
So what was your goal whenever you started using it?
Just to improve my ability to communicate, which used to be very, very good. I mean, I used to be like an incredible salesperson at Verizon when I was really young. Over the years of working with developers and software constantly, I just like sort of deviated from that communication style into one that's like very technical and sort of dry. So just trying to get back some ability to have a more human conversation, I guess.
I'm curious what made you change into maybe less of a communicator in your eyes anyway?
Not less, just much more precise and technical, which isn't captivating. I mean, you have to be interested in the topic.
So communicating emotionally or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just like if you're really talking about this function and how you need it to work and what variables and or a mapping or something, like there's not a whole lot of reason to have emotional conversation there.
Something I've noticed, I've worked with web developers a lot over the last 5 years or so, and some of my favorite people in the world, very direct, very to the point, some of the most creative people that I have ever met. But in my experience, very specific type of person is gravitating toward this type of work. And there is no runaround. Everything is in binaries. It's like, does it do this? Yes. Does it do that? No. And this is the information you need to communicate. So I've found this in myself as well. Like, I'm becoming far more direct, really not putting in a lot of subjective information, not a lot of emotional language, not a lot of coloring language. It's just, this is what it needs to do. It's not doing this.
Yeah, it's sort of like, I mean, this is the most distilled down and kind of icky feeling way I could say it, but it's also completely true. It's like build or sales language. And so if you're going to truly build this thing, you have to understand the technical details and the complexity and be able to communicate it. When you go to sell it to someone, they do not care how the plane works. They want to go to Hawaii, and you need to make it clear how it feels to be in Hawaii and why you might want to be there, not how the airplane works. But you do need people to build airplanes, or you can't get there.
For sure.
Unless you take a boat
to Hawaii.
Sure. Why couldn't you take a boat to Hawaii?
Because this is not the year 1879.
You technically could take a boat to Hawaii.
Not anymore. I don't think they do it.
You could take
Surely there are cruises.
I bet someone's canoed to Hawaii.
Oh, I'm sure. Because of how ridiculous it is. People only do ridiculous things.
If nobody's canoed to Hawaii, I'd think Jake should do it.
It's got to be a kayak. A canoe would not make it.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that like canoes come from Polynesia, right? Like dugout canoes, and it's actually really interesting, anthropologically speaking. We're finding artifacts in South America that predate the ice age that would have created the Bering Land Bridge. So this whole theory of people coming over from Russia through Alaska on the Bering Strait land bridge is like inconclusive now. Maybe they hopped in a canoe and just kept paddling.
So there are two people who did the trek via kayak so far.
Okay.
California to Hawaii. 91 days took the last guy.
Oh, what about the first guy? I don't
have that information available for quick reference.
I'm just curious if the second guy was like a world record breaker.
Yeah. As an Enneagram 5, this is the hardest scenario to be in, to not have the information available for quick reference.
He's definitely going to know later, though.
I will know later.
Find out. Daniel Delusky. Is that his name? You got like a surprised look on your face. It'd be so weird.
So a video started playing, but it sounded like a voice that was not you guys. And I thought the only thing that could be happening was this call. And I'm like, who is in our call? That's what happened with my face.
So what you're saying is we were having a conversation. You got distracted by a different thing. And I'm not even upset about it.
My phone is on the floor.
Yeah.
It's not my phone's fault.
Why would you get upset about it?
Why would I get upset about it? Okay. So whenever we engage in conversation, there's like this unspoken sort of expectation on all parts, right? That I'm trying to communicate information to you. Perhaps I, view how much you value me and what I have to say based on, how much attention you're paying to me and whether or not you can repeat back, what I'm saying, this sort of idea. Like when I engage someone in conversation, my expectation is that they're listening. If they start paying attention to something else, I guess I don't really feel as valued.
What if they give you a good excuse?
It's fine. I don't care.
Totally changes it?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like,
Oh, I just got, my baby is literally dying. Let me go.
yeah, exactly.
Totally fine,
I'm like,
right?
oh, I'm so glad that you're not paying attention to me talking about, the Bering Land Bridge.
I thought he was going to be glad that the baby was dying.
Why?
No, I'm just glad you know about it.
It's just important for us to work death into each podcast.
Wait, was the baby? This is natural causes.
I don't know. There are so many types of death. Please enumerate.
You would know better than me. I would call this the banter episode.
We're definitely on topic.
We are, because we're distracted. We are actually exemplifying the behavior currently that Frank wanted to talk about.
Are we? I don't have a behavior I want to talk about.
This is a very self-aware podcast.
Yeah. But how do you feel about thinking
You
that
feel
you're
self-aware, or us as a collective feel self-aware?
The podcast feels self-aware.
Do you think that feeling self-aware is the first sign that you're not self-aware?
Huh.
Like the second that you feel confident in it, you're no longer examining it as closely as you could be. It's the first step toward complacency.
Yeah, that's all ego sort of stuff. It's like that. I'm so humble. First, that's foundational to not being humble, I think.
Yeah.
So to bring it back to poise, though, I am curious. The thing that you always get, or the thing that you have mentioned the most about poised, is this whole speak like you're having a conversation thing, which was really funny the first time you said it.
Yeah, it's
Because
funny
we
every
know
time
you.
it says it. Yeah. Why?
Because you are direct and sort of low energy and whatever. It's just funny.
Sure.
But I'm curious. I know you said it initially, it kind of, I don't know what the term you used was, but offended you or something like that.
No, I just thought like it's annoying. What an annoying problem. It's also, I mean, I'm learning to channel energy in a better way, so I'm better at it already for sure, but it's a similar thing in Spanish. Like we have the same Spanish instructor, but he, in Spanish, there's accents everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you got to like put energy into that accent. And I'm like, why would they make a language like this? Like all the letters are there. They're expressed. Why would I need to like, woohoo at the end of a word? That's
Wait, do you say woohoo every time there's an accent?
yeah, that's what, am I doing it wrong?
Yes. I think I found your problem.
Yeah. He's
I know
very
why you
accepting if that's wrong,
I know why you don't speak Spanish. Yeah, I mean, Spanish in general is a more energetic language,
Right.
but I don't think that. I mean, I get what you're saying, but I don't think you have to necessarily be more energetic on an accent. You just have to enunciate that accent,
Right. With energy.
that syllable.
Anyways, I don't even think I'm low energy, just for the clarifying of the record. But I do think I did work in like complex technical details so much that I got really used to the people I was talking to not caring as much as me, especially, sort of business leaders. And so this is de-energizing. You're like, why are you asking me this? You don't care. And so I sort of got in like a groove there, but I don't think I'm overall low energy. I just worked way too long on something that was not a good fit for me. And that had effects on my life. But
So what have you been doing to correct that not speaking like you're having a conversation thing?
well, that's why I find it frustrating. It's not any information. Like the only information I can get out of it is like try to like have a shared thread, which is like ask questions and tell stories and try to like get this person like drawn into what you were wanting to talk about, or at least go with them for a while and what they wanted, like to try to build this conversation, which is sort of a weird thing to do when I'm on a call with a developer telling him what to do. So it's like not, it's all context dependent on whether that's actually good advice.
Yeah. Do you start with pleasantries and stuff, or do you get right down to business, like on a call with like a developer?
It all depends on who it is and like how long I've known them and who they are. But there are some developers I've like talked for 15 minutes about nothing related to work because their like level of comfort goes up if you do that.
Sure.
And there are some people who are like, I don't know, I don't think I've ever had a call longer than 4 minutes with them. They just get the information they need and go do the work.
That is interesting. I mean, I have one developer that I work with currently, and if we're in the middle of a project and like it is a technical, topic conversation, then like dude is shut off. Like he does not want the pleasantries, anything like that. He's like, come on, can we just get to it? But this very same person, I can have a different type of conversation and it's like a project kickoff or something. Less technical, more of like an overview. Dude will sit with me for 10, 15 minutes and we're just talking about, his house renovation project and how the weather's been and, like we're laughing and joking and stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I have that too, even with the 4-minute people.
Yeah.
It's like it's an unscheduled quarterly check-in or something.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's not talk about work for a little while and we'll just talk about how their kids are doing and
right.
all these kind of things. Yeah.
But I mean, I've become similar. I used to be the guy who wanted the pleasantries and like, if I'm in the middle of something, give me the information. Like, let's just get this done. Right.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's something that feels a little bit dehumanizing about that.
Yeah, well, it's all, and it depends on how much trust you have too. Like, if you trust each other, like, oh, you're busy, I'm busy. Here's the information you need. Have a good day. Like,
yeah.
If someone thinks, I've also had like I asked someone and I didn't do the like due diligence of understanding where they were emotionally, or even like they're in new relationships. I don't know how emotionally reactive they are or something. So I call them and I ask them a question, and then they are like, seriously have like this fear response that I'm like doing something different than the way they do their work. And so there's a whole reaction for that. And I should have just had the pleasantries, but I didn't know that yet. So,
right. I really like what you created there, this dichotomy between like build and sales language, because, I work very closely with a person in a sales and strategy role. And in every conversation that we have, which is multiple times a week, we do the pleasantries. We talk about what you do over your weekend, how's your day going, running into any obstacles, anything going particularly well, this whole thing. And when I forget that, like there's something off, like it's thrown off. Yeah. And I mean, I've been very clear with this person where I'm like, listen, I know sometimes I sound like a dick, especially over text. I don't mean to, like I'm just very direct and very focused on what I'm doing. Please always imagine me with a smile on my face. That's the way that I am. I'm very happy, but I do just want the answer to the question. Can we just get to it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've even had, like, I've always had the sort of sales ability for sure. And I think like in my last job, I really got every member of every team that I touched regularly, like got so familiar with my passion for making the medic in the field and the ambulance's life better. I had so many of those conversations that everyone knew that's what I like. If I'm calling you, that's what I'm here to do. And then we transitioned companies, and it had been like some people didn't get they never got the passion sort of conversation. And they're like, why are we in this complex thing? And so I don't know. It's not that I lost it. I just didn't do it. I just got out of the habit, I guess. But there's like a build and sales, and I think they're both important. And they don't cross that well.
Yeah. The trust is important though. Like this trust, and I mean, we have this in, not just work relationships, but interpersonal relationships as well. It's like, well, to take it to the far extreme, I've noticed in myself, I treat the people that I'm closest with the worst sometimes. And it's because, like, I look at it and I say, it's because I'm comfortable with you. It's because I trust you. I may not put the energy into it right this second to make you know beyond any shadow of a doubt that I love you and that it's all going to be okay. But I trust that if I have an issue, we're going to talk about it. If I don't bring it up, then we're pretty good. But there is that trust that is in there, and it's a responsibility at the same time to say, hey, if I expect you to trust me, then that means that if there is a problem, I have to bring it up. Like that's on me. Otherwise I don't really have the right to not put energy into it every time.
Right. Where do you think you fall?
On what exactly?
Like, where's your default on the build sales spectrum, I guess?
I mean, probably more buildy. But my communication is different depending on the function. So like at work, in a romantic relationship or at work, I'm very much in service to the other. So I communicate very differently with the people that are on my team than I would like even my friends or family. Not because I don't love you guys, but we're not usually trying to accomplish something. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest problems we've had with the podcast is we've never tried to actually be productive together, the three of us. And so we had a lot of, we don't know how we work.
Sure.
Sort of stuff going on early on, and probably still do. But in my communication at work, it's very much, it's more personable, playful, to try to make the team feel comfortable. And then we get down to business, I think, for the most part. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense based on the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, I think that you just called something out that's kind of interesting is like, and I don't know this for sure. I'm kind of drawing this from what you said. Typically speaking, I'm not in calls with an entire team. Typically speaking, I'm on calls with individuals, and then I change my communication style based on who that person is and my experience with them. If I'm talking to a team, I would say I probably default to sales talk, right? It's more of like, hey, I'm going to put in the effort because, you're only as strong as your weakest link. If one person feels uncomfortable, then it's not working. We need to all kind of create this cohesive sort of group conversation. Do you talk often with like your whole team, or is it usually one-on-one?
No, especially not on like virtual communication. Usually it's not the full team. Now I do when I'm in the office with multiple people, there's in-person communication, but that's completely different, right? Because there's now all of a sudden there's presence and there's more nonverbal communication, more body language, more probably even facial communication that's happening. And then I think that we tend to interrupt each other, for lack of a better term, when it's in person. Like if me and Leonera are in the same room having a conversation, there's more sort of like flow to it where maybe there's interruption or interjection or whatever. And then I think on video, a lot of times we wait for that person to be done speaking because there's usually some sort of latency. There's, you know what I mean? And I think even just it feels more official or something when you're on like a video call. It's less personal.
Yeah, I experienced some of that myself. But you're absolutely right. I mean, even though we're in the room right now, we've made it a point to try not to jump over everyone else, right? Because it doesn't sound very good when you're recording audio to have two voices at the same time.
Do you think we should tell the people that?
What do we do about it?
They might notice that we're bad at what we say we're doing.
We're really striving to bring you the highest quality audio possible and have been since episode 5. But like there is this sort of very interesting, it's just like this brief pause. Okay. Yep. He's definitely done talking. What's next? As opposed to,
Yeah. Well, it's funny because most of the virtual calls that I'm on are actually not with my team. It's clients.
yeah.
So, and that's a completely different dynamic, right? Because depending on who the client is and what the purpose of the call is, sometimes it's to listen to them.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's they want information from you. So you're going to do most of the talking because you're trying to explain something or teach or whatever, right? So depending on the purpose of the call, who the client is, it's just different every time. I mean, also depending on the client, there are multiple people on the call. Sometimes it's one person, you know. Yeah, it's very different.
That's very interesting. Like when I jump into a call with a client, usually I want to be very personable. And what I'm realizing right now is that the likelihood of interruption or talking over someone is actually higher in that scenario because there's like this natural flow to it. Like, oh, you said something. Oh, I'm going to jump in with something that's kind of funny on top of that or whatever. And there's actually like linguistic studies about this. And when you look at this over a population, you have certain populations where it's considered essentially a signal that you are paying attention, that you are engaged in a conversation to talk over someone. So you see this in women, in Black communities, nowhere else more than in the Jewish community, actually, is people just like talking while you're talking. And it's this constant engagement. But yeah, I found this constantly on calls with clients where I say something, I want to say some sort of anecdote or a quick quip, and I'm talking over them, and then it's like, huh? What'd you say? I have no idea what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it awkward, but I'm trying to recreate that in-person interaction.
Yeah, I think that's speaking like you're having a conversation, maybe.
Talking over other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, I might be in a situation where they're like, can you explain the medical dispatch priority system to me?
Yeah.
I can't. I cannot, like we're having a conversation, do that, though.
Well, there's also this weird like meta aspect to getting real-time feedback on what's happening, right? It's like that's very much not a human experience to get that
You
feedback.
should be an
right
Enneagram
there.
5.
Are you're constantly receiving messages from yourself that like what that sounded like?
Yeah, well, from you, like I'm looking at you.
Sure.
I'm always monitoring the environment. I'm definitely taking in way more input than I put out.
Sure.
So for me, it's just like, oh, there's another thing,
Okay.
another monitoring system on board. It's great.
That makes sense. I mean, I think that everyone has that. You're like paying attention. Noah's zoned out over there. I kind of feel like he's not listening. If we try to bring him in, he might say, huh? What do you mean? But my point is like everyone has that, but that is very interesting because you're right. Like I'm completely paying attention to my train of thought right now. I want to bring it to a cohesive end, and yeah, I'm kind of paying attention to the signals around me, but certainly not more than my output.
Yeah. And I think actually part of why, I don't think you exactly asked me this, Noah, but part of why so I used to have a belief that sales was like bad or something like this. And it was really like foundationally a belief that lying to people is bad. And I just thought like on a technical level, when you promise someone something that it doesn't do yet, that's lying. And I saw that happen a lot in sales conversations throughout my life. So I just sort of like had a real, like, I'm going to stay away from that sort of stuff. But two things have happened in the world. One of which is that we have like very strong innovations So you really can build like software, you can build very quickly, almost anything. And so to promise someone you can do it in 3 months from now, I mean, except for extremely complicated projects, probably you can get it done. So I wouldn't feel okay with saying it does it today if it doesn't do it, but yeah, we can do that. It seems like a pretty reasonable thing. And the other thing that's changed is something. Don't remember.
Yeah, between those two things, I mean, the world looks very different than it did even 5 years ago.
Do you have any suggestions for what the other thing?
For what the second thing might be?
I do not.
Please tell Frank what his other thing is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just that I changed the belief, probably, was the other thing I was talking about. I just didn't categorize them right, but.
I feel that, though. Like, I'm a different person when I walk into a place where people are making a commission on sales. Like, into a cell phone provider store or like even a clothing retailer, whenever, they're making commission. Like, I put a wall up completely. Sure. I don't like to be around these people. It is a sign that I believe I'm about to be lied to, taken advantage of, this sort of thing. Walls go up. And there's a belief in my head that like, I've wanted to stay away from sales as well because I feel this. And I've had a hard time like working at the gym where I work. And, I work part-time sometimes at a gym, and the workout is, prescribed, and the results we say, you're going to get 6-pack abs from this. You're going to get sculpted shoulders. And I go, no, that's actually a lie. I'm not going to say that out loud. You're going to do this workout. It's going to be great for you, but you're not going to walk away with a 6-pack if you didn't walk in with a 6-pack. Right. I cannot say this.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think sales is about lying, but I hate it for similar reasons. I just don't have any interest in trying to persuade people. You can persuade people by telling them the truth. I mean, the best thing to do in sales is to talk about the benefits of whatever you're selling.
Yeah, the shortcut to sales is to believe in what you're selling. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to learn anything. Just like really, really like it. At Verizon, I thought it was the best wireless network. Hands down, we had sweet data products. I sold it like crazy. I had no moral objection. I literally thought it was amazing. That's the shortcut. If you don't like selling something, it's because the thing sucks. But I think for sales, the like commission-based sales is the wrong scope for the problem. People are lying to each other all over the place. They're telling stories, they're transferring beliefs, they're convincing people to marry each other for money. There's like all kinds of things happening in the world everywhere. And like, we're like, oh, this guy, he's going to get $70 if I buy a cell phone from him. So he must be the worst human on earth.
Yeah.
This scale is so small. Or a car salesman or whatever, but everybody's doing this selling. It's just like,
if your air conditioner breaks and you pay a repair service to fix it, you don't think about how they're going to make money off of you. You just think about how they're fixing your AC.
Right. Yeah. And that's the essence of the belief that I changed, is like everyone's just doing whatever they want in the world, and they should. And like, if you don't like what they're doing, you should not like it on its merits, not because you think they're salespeople or like what. You need to evaluate how much money they make and determine if that's bad for the world. Just if you like the service and it's a reasonable price for you, get it.
Yeah, but I think the commission thing is this idea that they're going to try to push you into something that maybe makes them more money than another product. Like if you buy this phone, I'll make $100 instead of $70 or whatever.
And they will. There are people like that, but they're also everywhere else.
Sure.
In like less obvious ways.
Well, I mean, it's very interesting because like you just brought up like, I need my air conditioner fixed. The thing that you are selling is a very tacit sort of product. You have a broken air conditioner, you're going to have a fixed air conditioner. If that salesperson who doesn't really have to work for the work, like if the air conditioner breaks, you're calling them, right? But if that person was selling you something far more subjective and abstract. Like, your life with this new climate control is going to be amazing. I mean, you're going to have to within 1 degree control over your, environment constantly. If you want it to be frigid, it can be. This thing can go up to sauna temperatures. Like, you're imagining your life in a different way. And it's all because this product is going to change it. Like, when we start getting into this sort of realm, that's where I start to get uncomfortable. It's not like, this product is great. Maybe the product is great, but how it's going to change your life, like, that's all weird stuff. And it works. It works really well.
What if your AC broke and the HVAC person came out and said, well, we can fix this, but I think you're better off replacing it.
Mm-hmm.
How does that feel? Does that feel different to you?
Do they do anything other than that? In my experience, that's the only thing those guys do.
I don't know. I'm just asking.
Well, sure. I mean, that's a great question. I actually have had the experience where someone comes out and they say, yeah, absolutely, I'm going to fix it. It's $80 or something. Usually it's more like $500, but in that situation, yeah, it's weird. It's like an auto mechanic. I'm not a specialist here. You're the authority. I mean, I do want to have a justified reason why I should replace it as opposed to fixing it. Like, convince me.
I had this scenario with my dog recently. We can fix your dog,
or we can replace him,
or we could just get rid of him.
A new dog would allow you to control your environment within 1 degree.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that'd be impressive. I didn't know dogs could do that.
Actually, I opted to get rid of him.
I see why you guys are so into dogs.
Yeah, it's temperature control.
One other thing that I kind of hit on a little bit ago with like Poised, though, is this idea of real-time feedback. So you said well, here's the way that I took it, is like, you already have this thing happening, and I agree, it's kind of universal. You get this feedback, right? But it really just displays it and it puts it into words right there in front of you. And it's like a little more objective.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
Some things it has like little status indicators, like how, it's like a percentage for energy.
Yeah.
Speed. I think it does like a little.
Sure. So I'm comparing this a little bit to, I wore a Whoop for a while. A Whoop band, it's like a performance tracker or, activity tracker type of thing. And it tells you, how well did you sleep last night? How hard did you work out? How many calories did you expend? This type of information. It's really great. The way that I wanted to use it is I wanted to know what lifestyle variables affect the quality of my sleep. Okay, well, it turns out that if I have one alcoholic drink after 5 p.m., my sleep tanks. It's terrible, right? So what result? I change my behavior. I get better sleep. I watch it happen in real time. This is a positive. What I also noticed, though, is that then I started gaming the thing itself. And I was like, okay, I want to increase my strain. Now, a 9.0 strain workout is not enough. I want to hit 17.0 every single day. And like, now I'm no longer doing what I would naturally do. Now I'm behaving differently for the product itself. I'm curious, like, do you feel any of that? Like, oh, I want to get green lights on Poised. I want it to never say, talk like you're having a conversation again. Or is it different?
I think my engagement level with it is highly variable. So I'm just not really the kind of person who like wants to just live in response to something like that. But I like the information. And so if I'm in the right mood, I definitely want to observe it live. It's way more useful to me as an after the fact. They give you like a summary thing of how you did. And they like let you set goals, like you want to tell more stories or something, which I haven't really dug into that, but then they tell you how you're doing on that. I can't remember. It told me something recently. They sent me an email or something and said, you're doing a great job of adding this aspect of communication, but I don't know. It's not super valuable. Like a lot of times I'm not looking at it, or I see it on the other screen and I'm like, oh yeah, I could improve my energy right here, something, but
yeah, I mean, I think what I'm thinking about, I guess, is like the unintended side effects. We are using these feedback tools to optimize areas of our life, but then there's like these unintended side effects of, like Noah, you have, you work in SEO and you're writing blog posts and stuff and you're feeding it into some sort of optimizer application, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, if someone just went in there and like clicked optimize, would it just spit out like, oh, I'm going to use all these like keywords and reuse them over and over and stuff like that? Or
It doesn't do it itself. You have to work stuff in.
okay, but if somebody uses an application like that, do they get a real-time ranking of like how optimized that post is, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen any kind of aspect of that, like real-time feedback in, like, if you read the most optimized post possible, would it actually communicate well, or would it just perform well in a search engine?
It totally depends on the writer. Frank's played with this a little bit and he doesn't like it for
Okay.
that reason, I think.
I find it, I found it annoying. I can get something extremely well optimized for SEO. And then I've always been a very good writer. That's sort of a natural talent, or I don't know how it developed, but I have it. So then I'm like, all right, and I've got it super optimized. Now I just need to write it so a human will love reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Only I'm going to de-optimize it. And there's a balance, and you can always like go back and make it more optimized and then go back and make it more so a human loves reading it. But at some point, your time is so worth something and you need to stop optimizing. So
yeah, I have a different opinion of it, but I've used it a lot longer than Frank has. And so, I think there's an element to it that he just hasn't fully maybe explored yet. But I think it's more like I would rather someone on my team or a client, depending on how we produce content, write what's real and then go through and find opportunities to work in what we call semantic topics. It's not like the old days of SEO where you're keyword stuffing. So if you're, trying to optimize for Apple TV, you say Apple TV 100,000 times, which sounds completely unnatural and ridiculous, but that's used to be what people would do. And there are still people who try to do that sort of thing. It works in related topics. So it's looking at a topical authority. So if you're trying to optimize for Apple TV, I don't know anything about Apple TV, but it might want you to say things like TV series. It might want you to say things like streaming service. It might want you to say things like monthly fee, like anything that you can imagine that is related to paying for like a streaming service, Apple TV. These are the things that it wants you to talk about. You can talk about these things in a very natural way, and you can find if you write a cohesive piece that you like to start with, and then go try to find opportunities to work these terms in. It feels way more natural. But I also think there's just a lot of terrible writing out there. So people don't know what to do with it. I'm not talking about Frank. I just think that a lot of people go, oh, I've got to say all of these things to make it super optimized. And then they just kind of like throw them in places that don't make any sense.
Sure.
And so then it looks really terrible or sounds really terrible.
So you see this as more like a finishing piece.
I do personally, yeah.
Like you built the thing and now I'm taking some sandpaper to it and making it nice and smooth.
Well, it's a little more than that. You have to know, like you either have to research or just know. And in your case, the client just knows the semantic topics. So that helps for sure.
Yeah. But I also have for sometimes, depending on the client, some clients want to produce their own content and then we'll optimize it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think my agency deals with people in all kinds of different professions. So, I mean, if you think about something like healthcare or law, something that's you don't want to mess that up. Like if I'm writing content for a lawyer, I don't want to say something that is inaccurate to the law. It's not that you want to say inaccurate things for a roofing company, but there's way higher stakes when you're talking about like law or something, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of these clients would prefer to write their own content and then give it to us and let us optimize it. And what you'll find is when a client, kind of like what Frank was alluding to earlier, if a client creates that content themselves, it typically ends up being, if they talk about it comprehensively, tends to be very optimized because they're saying all the things that need to be said because they know the topic in and out. Now, when somebody who's not a professional, like somebody at my agency who knows nothing about the law, if we try to write it, we do our best to research. We have tools that help us work in topics. But if we just wrote it without like using some of these tools, we might miss a bunch of things. Those tools help us kind of fill those gaps. That's how I talk about it. It's like a content gap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I also like to write about disruptive ideas, which sort of like, it's not that you can't bring the semantic topics in, but if you really believe that the sort of institution is wrong about this thing,
sure,
then you need to bring semantic topic in, disprove it, bring it in, disprove it, bring it in, disprove it. It's sort of a lot of work. And then to think about the reader dealing with that is crazy. Like, why would you take? Yeah.
But you're helping them. If the overall belief that's out there is that this is the correct solution, and you disagree with that, then you're helping them by saying, "Look, this has kind of been the norm in this industry. I disagree. Here's why." That's super helpful for SEO too.
Right.
And like the other way that I look at optimizing content is, yes, we want to match what's out there so we can compete, but we will also want to add to it. And so like these tools, like the particular one that you're talking about, when like you'll run it for a query, just like you would search for in Google, and it'll go out and it basically looks at like the top 20 ranking pages, and it gives you a list of topics that it sees throughout these top ranking pages. So like, hey, and some of them are not relevant. You'll find, especially depending on what the topic is, you might even find company names because they're seeing that a lot. So if you like want to optimize for like CPQ, you might see Salesforce come up because Salesforce is huge in CPQ. That doesn't mean you want to work Salesforce in, right? So it's not like a perfect system, but it goes out and says, look, these are the things that we see in common between these top 20 ranking pages. Talk about it. And then you talk about something else, something more, you add to it. And eventually, if you rank well enough, now you're going to see those terms show up because you're going to be in those top 20 pages.
It's so interesting. I mean, I find this topic interesting, and it really is showing up in a lot of different ways right now with all the narrative around like AI and stuff like that. And I mean, you can directly pull in the dynamic between authenticity and consistency. Like AI is going to be very consistent, and then you have to actually program authenticity into it. And one of the first times that I ever ran into this was whenever I was recording music, and you can use a feature in a lot of digital audio workstations called quantize, and it will make your drum beat, for instance, be directly on every single quarter note. But what they found was people don't like listening to that. It doesn't sound human. It doesn't sound real. Humans will be off every couple of beats or, within a certain standard deviation. So then they came up with another feature. You can quantize, and then you can do this other thing that makes it sound like human. And so it'll just throw it off just a little bit to the left or the right of that beat and make it sound better to our ears. So I don't know. I find this very interesting. Like, we're using all of these feedback, wearables, listenables, whatever you might call it, and it's changing the way that we interact. But at the same time, we still kind of pull it back in some ways. I say the most optimal is not always optimal.
Well, right. And in SEO specifically, I mean, getting people to click and engage is super important.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be thinking about that piece.
We talk about that a lot in coaching as well. If you're coaching a CrossFit class and your athlete is dying and their heart rate is 176 and whatever. You could be very specific with your cue. You can say, send your hips back posteriorly and be very specific. That would be optimal in a textbook. It is not optimal in that situation. In that situation, you say something like, sit back like you're sitting in a chair. Whatever works is the best cue.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, guys.
Yep. That concludes this week.
Later.
Hey, it's Frank again. Thanks for listening to an Origins episode of the Unbecoming Platypus podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast to stay updated on future episodes. You can also check us out online at theunbecomingplatypus.com. We hope these conversations inspire you to improve your communication skills and deepen your connections with your own friends and loved ones. Until next time, this has been the Unbecoming Platypus podcast.